What is going on, guys? Rewinds here, and in this video I'm going to be bringing you guys my review for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Manga chapter number 33. So, first things first, before I even dive into the review, some of you may have seen my spoiler video for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter 33 is no longer up, and that is due to Shueisha flagging it for copyright. So, of course, I do still want to cover spoiler videos, but this has kind of become like a repetitive thing by them targeting my channel, even though, I'll make the spoiler video and I'll, give my thoughts on everything as well while telling you guys the spoilers. But they're very wishy-washy with what months they let slide and what months they have a problem with. So I think going forward, I'm just going to try to format these spoiler videos different in some sort of way. I don't know how exactly yet I'm going to do that, but that is the immediate plan that I do have, I think, going forward, with May's spoilers and on. So that's a little update on that in case you were wondering where that video went. Now, let's talk about the chapter itself, and we are kicking it off with the chapter itself being called Shattering Futures, and it has a Sarada solo cover, which I thought was pretty cool. I really liked the blend of blue and pink that Ikimoto did for her fit. I thought it went very well, just like the original colors that we are going to see for her whenever the manga is animated with the black and red. I think both combos work really well. So shout out Ikimoto for keeping the good cover streak going. Another thing I do want to mention real quick, actually, is I will also still be talking about the few chapters we had prior to this in reviews for their own videos as well. So I'll probably do that across this week and next week, and I will be discussing those as well. And then maybe I'll make an arc review as well, either this month or next month, because it does feel like this arc is about to wrap up, if already didn't wrap up this chapter. But I do feel like we're pretty much around that part, so I'll probably do an arc review as well. So this chapter kicked off with Sarada pretty much unconscious from her, collapsing in the last chapter, and Boruto rushed over to her aid, and we're pretty much kicking it off with a bunch of Mamushi nearby, and we got Konohamaru and Mitsuki also standing by as well right now. So Team 7's pretty much reunited and together to start the chapter. Kawaki, meanwhile, is saying, oh man, relax to Himawari, because Himawari is like big bro. And Kawaki's like, relax, I simply ran out of gas. Save all the worry for Sarada instead. And then Sumire's asking what Sarada's condition is. Boruto says she's breathing. I don't think she's in serious danger, but I'm worried about the damage the Mangekyo did to her vision. Himawari comes running over and says, let me see. And she tries to heal Sarada and does end up healing the damage to her blood vessels and stopping the bleeding, but she says she doesn't know if that's going to help at all with her vision. So at that point, Mamushi is laughing on, and Damon is here, and he's saying, just come at me at once, will you, and let's get this over with. So the Mamushi charge in, and while that carries on, Inojin is talking to Koji, saying it's no use, at this rate we'll all be wiped out. Hey, how much more do you know about what happens next? Koji says, 4 days ago, that's the last time Presence showed me any possible futures, and it was based on that intel that I imparted mind transmission formation to you. I haven't had any updates since then. So, Inojin says, updates? And then Koji says, Presence precognitions come to me at random times. Sadly, I can't peek at the future when I want. That's just how it works. And then he pretty much says that and what's been happening since I told you about your new jutsu is different from every other scenario I had seen up until that point. And meanwhile, what's happening here is Amado is listening into this conversation. Now, I was wondering in my spoiler video how this was happening and the others weren't, but it actually makes sense, because now that Amado knows that Koji is around, he can do the same thing he did to Kawaki through Koji as well now. So that's pretty much what Amado must be doing to listen into the technique and everything. And Koji's pretty much saying it's the greatest misfortune of everything here right now that just happened is that everything ended up happening coinciding with Kobu's visit, and that was the big thing. So Amado's pretty much thinking, presence, precognition, such a thing is possible. And Inojin saying, so we're grasping in the dark now. I totally thought that you knew way more about what was going to be happening. Koji says, I believe I told you to know the future leads to the act of destroying it, which is true. If you do tell too many people about the future, that can tweak a lot of events that would alter it. And that's pretty much what Koji is making as a claim over here. Then we get some panels of Damon, dealing with some of the Mamushi. Ada's disgusted by the stench of them. She's not even really reacting. She's just saying, ew, gross. Like, she's not even trying to run away or anything, but she's just reacting like that. And then Shikadai says Damon may be taking out the Mamushi, but they're still multiplying faster. Damon's stamina can't be infinite. He's going to go down eventually. So then we see Damon take off even more Mamushis, but, he's kind of tiring out now. He says, this is bad. I'm starting to get short of breath. Mitsuki comes in with Sage Mode, takes out a few, saying there's no end to them. Boruto comes in too, asking Shikamaru now through the transmission what his assessment is. What do we do? Meanwhile, Delta's also jumped into battle while Konohamaru and Himawari are looking out after Sarada. So, Koji's pretty much saying to Inojin, you would have come up with the mind transmission formation after Kono had suffered massive casualties at Mamushi's hands. Since we are battling Mamushi with you having mastered the jutsu, it's no surprise that the subsequent events are different from any scenario that I had previously seen. And Koji says, doesn't Mamushi feel weak to you? And Ada and Himawari are still alive. All in all, I interpret such to be entirely thanks to you having your new jutsu. And then Inojin says, even so, what about here on out? Things look bad from every angle. I see no chance of us winning. So Inojin is pretty heated up, even though Koji's, a little bit more calm, saying that this has been the best scenario so far still. But Inojin doesn't know what the end would be. Inojin says, new jutsu, big whoopin' deal. What use is the mind transmission formation under these? And then he says, new jutsu. And Amado, meanwhile, is thinking, there are several possible explanations. It may be that they can share visual or auditory information with each other, or while each Mamushi can think independently, there might exist a single collective consciousness governing the entire swarm. So I don't know if this is actually Amado thinking, or if this is Koji saying this and Amado listening in, but it's one of the two. I think it was Amado thinking, though. So Koji says the future has changed drastically for sure, but Preston's biggest forte is intel. Though the path we took here differed, I have viewed a future whose details share similarities with our current situation. So that's pretty much leading him to say that there are measures that can be taken, and that's what he's implying to Inojin, but he can't directly say what that is. So Inojin figures it out by saying, pretty much he says, I have no need to relate to you based on your expression. That's what Koji says, actually. And then Inojin says, I have to do it. I just steeled myself to do what's needed. Koji says, there are quite a few futures where you reach the same conclusion. So Koji knows Inojin's worth in the situation here. And he knows Inojin is going to play a very key part to ending this stuff. So then we got Damon saving Ada from some of the Mamushi, saying there's way too many corpses, and it's saying it's no use, that they're faster than Ada, but pretty much that Damon saying he would strike him down. But in the meantime, Boruto goes and takes out some of the Mamushi, saying, I got your backs, just keep on moving away. Shikamaru, meanwhile, scrambling to think. Then the mind transmission gets cut off. And then Koji says, I wish you luck. The reverse summoning happens, and now Inojin is on the battlefield. First thing that happens is he yells Himawari, and then Himawari says Inojin, and then Inojin says, sorry in advance, take care of me after. And then Inojin goes running by and yells, Shikadai, capture Mamushi for me, just one is enough. Shikadai reacts immediately with the Shadow Paralysis Jutsu, and then the Mind Transfer Jutsu is used by Inojin to get that one Mamushi. So then Inojin, falls to the ground because he's in Mamushi's minds now. And then what happens is some of the Mamushi end up stopping as a result. And then everyone's wondering, what's going on with them? And then Shikadai says it's Inojin's mind transfer jutsu, except he's only possessed one of them and yet they all suddenly stop moving. Kawaki and Amado, well, Kawaki's saying pretty much like, what the heck is going on? Amado's saying, just as I thought. I suspect that Inojin has taken over not just a single unit, but the collective consciousness. So, and then Amado says, so it does exist, this single unifying hive mind that directs all the Mamushi, and that is what Inojin possess right now. Every Mamushi is under Inojin's control. So, that ends up happening. Big move by Inojin for sure. And then Inojin remembers the statement by Koji of saying you must destroy both eyes. So what he does is he yells Damon with one of the Mamushi's bodies. And then Inojin's thinking, I'm going to destroy your eyes. And that's what he's thinking towards Damon, which we know would cause a reflection of that towards the Mamushi. And that's what happens. Mamushi's eyes get pierced and destroyed. Inojin's body also faces that as a result. So we're in a tough spot right now for Inojin over here, but the Mamushi's eyes are all taken care of, which is a very huge thing. And, that's pretty much the key to winning this battle, and that's what happens. But Inojin, MVP for sure of this chapter, no doubt. And Inojin also, we got to give this guy some flowers because, Inojin's gotten a lot of, I think, hate, across, I don't want to say part one more so. Maybe part one, people may have given him some hate for not being super duper relevant in the manga, but I think especially when his part two design came out, Inojin was catching a lot of strays. He definitely, caught some strays from me too, especially when it pertained to the haircut of his design. So, I'm glad to see though that they've turned Inojin as someone who went from, oh, is he even going to be super relevant in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex to, oh, this guy is arguably the MVP of this arc. And I think you could make a very good case that he is the MVP of this arc. So for a side character to get that kind of shift, I think that's really good writing right there. So, shout out to Ikimoto, and of course shout out to Kishimoto as well, who supervises it with Ikimoto. Great stuff. Really great stuff to just see Inojin get a moment of shine like that. I also like the fact that Shikadai played a little role too at the end here, getting that shadow paralysis to happen. Both of them are definitely outshining Chocho, but I don't really know what she would have done in this moment. I guess they could have done like some sort of trio tag team attack before the mind transmission, or maybe like Chocho and Shikadai could have done an attack together, or Chocho could have done an attack, let's say Shikadai could have gotten the paralysis, and then Inojin could have still done the mind transfer, but I don't really think too much attention was given to Chocho per se. But anyhow, really cool stuff though for Inojin. Definitely am a fan of what's been going on with him in this chapter, and honestly, in 2 Blue Vortex in general. Definitely he's been a lot more relevant in since part 1, so really good stuff there. I hope it keeps up with some of the other new gen characters too. I liked Shikadai's involvement in this arc. I would like to see him do a little bit more too in another arc, but this was definitely an arc where he also felt pretty involved, especially when he had that chat with Shikamaru and what he just did here at the end here to help out Inojin as well. Cool stuff. I will talk more in depth, I think, in an arc review about some characters and, kind of just what I expect going forward. But all in all, let me wrap up this chapter here real quick. Towards the end, Inojin was being healed by Himawari, so we don't know what exactly happened to him, but we do know that we switch over to the Mamushi side of things, and Mamushi is pretty much disintegrating, and the Thorn Soul does appear, and Delta was surprised too. Dang, we got him, all of them? We actually did it just like that? And then Kawaki's like, that's a thorn bulb, and Boruto ends up getting that. Kawaki says, hey Boruto, what do you plan to do with that thing? And Boruto says, it'd be a shame to let it rot away, wouldn't it? Kawaki says, rot? And then we end up getting a pretty much a image of the tree that's holding Bug, and we see a claw mark on there with an eye. pretty much showing us that Code is going to be there. So now the big thing is, what is Code going to do next chapter? Code is someone we haven't seen in a while now. Like, I want to say at least like a year and a half, 2 years, I want to say. Somewhere in that ballpark. Like, last time we saw Code, he was getting done in by Jura. So I want to say probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago sounds right. But it's going to be interesting to see what kind of role he plays. Is he going to finally get a moment to shine? For a big villain, Code is still not beating the allegations at the moment for not getting, any big victories or any victories really at all per se. So we'll see what they got planned for Code. But all in all, I am happy with what I saw in this month's chapter. I do think to a degree there was some stuff that did feel a bit sudden, but I can overlook that because I do like the fact that Inojin got a really cool moment. But I'm going to have to still think about it. I do think this arc, compared to a few of the other arcs, faced a little bit more of pacing issues, just slightly more than other arcs. And what I mean by that is there were a couple of chapters that really just felt like, especially since Mamushi's just like this multiplying villain, that we were kind of not really getting anywhere. Like, it was cool to see characters flex their powers for the first couple chapters, and there were some like slower chapters in general, but I do believe all in all there were better. Every chapter I think was at least still decent or above, but I do think that some chapters were a lot stronger than others. We'll leave it at that. But all in all, I'm gonna give this chapter somewhere in the ballpark, I want to say, of like a 8.5 out of 10, because overall I enjoyed it despite some of it feeling a little bit rushed. But Inojin's moment definitely felt well built up, and I think the writing connected it really well. So I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. Really good stuff. I could see myself maybe pushing it higher, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. 8.5 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below of this chapter as well. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you guys are new. And as always, I hope you guys have a good day or night whenever you guys are watching this video. I'm Rewinds, and I'm out.